back to The Other 51, the podcast where we talk to your favorite writers and get them to tell us how they do the awesome things that they do. I am your host, Brian Moritz. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening wherever you are listening to this fine podcast. Today, this month, we are back with one of my favorite books of the year and one of my favorite writers to talk to about writing and about this book especially. He is the author of Only God Can Judge Me, The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur. Jeff Pearlman, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being here.
You say where we have your favorite writers, but how do you actually know that I'm anybody's favorite writer?
I mean, you're one of my favorite writers, so I an N of one, so that works.
All right. That's fair.
And you're still doing this, so you got to have somebody who likes you, likes
That's
your
fair.
stuff. So.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Thank you.
So I one of the things I do want to say right off the top of the bat is I think you wrote my favorite sentence that I've read all year, and it's in this book, and it is Tupac Shakur shot himself in the balls.
I thought you were going to say my favorite line from that book. I don't usually quote myself. In fact, I hate people quote themselves. But there was a line when I wrote something like, he was the worst drug dealer in the history of the state of Maryland, a state founded in whatever year it was founded.
That was good too. That was great too. No, the Tupac shooting himself in the balls it made me stop. I laughed so hard. When you have a line like that, or the drug dealer's line, I mean, what's that feeling like for you? I know you've been doing this for a long time, but do you still kind of stop and like, ooh, that was good, I got that one? Or do you chuckle yourself? Like, you just keep plowing through?
I mean, sometimes you feel pretty good about a line. I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know. I guess my general thing is like, I always think like, you're not really writing. This is going to sound douchey, but you're really writing to entertain yourself.
Mhm.
I always think like if you find what you're writing entertaining, you find the information interesting, others will too.
Mhm.
So I guess when I laugh at something I write, which honestly doesn't happen that often, it's not like I'm like, ho ho, you're so funny. But when it happens, I feel pretty good about it. I guess it doesn't
Mhm.
happen very often. It really doesn't happen very often.
So, backing up on the new book about Tupac, which is great. I loved reading it. I learned a lot about both Tupac and kind of like just the hip hop world of the '90s. Reading it, it's kind of the obvious question you probably been asked a billion times since the book came out, but we'll start here and go from there. What how did you decide that you're not coming off the Bo Jackson biography and the other biographies you've done? How and when did you realize like Tupac, this is my next book? What was that? How did that come to you?
Well, I'd wanted to write a Tupac book for a long time. Basically, all right, there's a writer named Kevin Powell who's written a lot about hip hop through the years. He
Mhm.
was on the first season of The Real World. A lot of people know him from that. And for years on his website, he had work on a Tupac biography. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna do it if Kevin Powell was doing it. Like, it doesn't really make sense. And but I would always look, and thing was there forever and ever on his website. And finally, I was just like, I don't think Kevin Powell's writing this book. I don't know Kevin Powell, but I don't think he's writing this book. And I want someone to write the definitive, all-in, interview everyone Tupac biography. So I thought, all right, I'm just gonna do it. And I reached out to my agent. I told him I want my next book to be Tupac. He was like, "You're a white sports writer," and I'm like, "I'm aware, but I just think there's a great book to be written." We reached out to HarperCollins, Mariner specifically, and they were kind of into it. And it's actually the first book I've ever written where I didn't have to write a book proposal, which is kind of
Oh,
weird.
really?
Most daring of my books, probably not daring, but most outside the box. So that's it. And I've always been a hip hop fan. Like I mean, much of my life I've been a hip hop fan. So it was a good outside the box one for me.
So, what was it about Tupac? And you get into this in the book, but what was it about Tupac specifically of all the hip hop artists that kind of drew you that like this is a story worth telling and a story that you specifically wanted to tell?
I'm a fan of mythology. In a way, Bo Jackson is the same way. Like Bo
Yeah.
Jackson didn't physically die, but his career died in his prime. And there's this whole mythology and this whole what could have been. And I think with Tupac, it's the same thing. Also, like I'm fascinated by young death, and I'm fascinated by whether we whether we worship and idolize someone because of his greatness or because of what we perceive his greatness would have been had he lived. Like there's this really interesting thing about that. And also, I think when you have iconic figures like a Bo Jackson, like a Walter Payton, like a Tupac, um, there's a lot of people just all they do is regurgitate the same 20 stories over and over again to prove his greatness. And I'm always fascinated in seeing what's between the cracks and what's out there that's more interesting. So he felt like a good guy to do. Yeah.
So So how did you so you get this proposal, the proposal, you get like the book approved, you're signing for to do the book. What's your first step? Like where do you how do you start? You got Tupac, like and you say the mythological figure, and you've written about these guys mythological figures before, but what's your first step? How do you start even thinking about how you're going to do this?
Always at eBay. eBay is always my first stop. And I go to
Okay.
eBay and I find every book that's been written about Tupac and I buy everything related to Tupac. The good thing about eBay is you can get them used, so you get like a $4
Mhm.
book. And I start combing through the books and I start trying to figure out who he was, or at least who he has been presented as through the years. And at the same time, I start building up a big newspaper library. Like I go to newspapers.com and do the day by day by day by day. So I wind up with 10,000 pages of Tupac articles and you comb through those. And then you're really you're at least getting his life path. And when you're reading the books, you're circling names. Like I don't have a book with me right here, but like circle, circle, circle. All right, call him, call her, call them. I'll tell you when I had a moment. I haven't talked about this, but this was a good moment for me. Is Tupac's estate issued a biography 2 years ago, and it was written by a woman named Stacey Robinson. She did a good job actually for an estate biography, which is limited in a certain way. And it mentioned he had a neighbor in White Plains, New York, briefly, and it was like his first white friend, and blah blah blah, White Plains, New York. And it mentioned, I don't know if it mentioned his first name and last name, or just his first name or whatever. But I found this kid. I circled it, found the kid, and he hadn't seen the estate biography. And I read to him what it said in the estate biography about him, and he laughed and he goes, "Everything about that is right except none of it." And then he told me like what really happened. And I was like, well, clearly, and I'm not criticizing her because how many people can you call? But like, clearly the author didn't call him. She just saw some article about him and used it.
Mhm.
I always think if you call everyone, you find stuff that no one else is going to find, even if it's someone as big as Tupac. And so, the eBay trail, the newspaper trail is very big for me early on.
And how many so what was the final interview count on this one for you?
It sounds so braggy when I say it, but I'll say it 652.
That's impressive. So, I mean, and when you're doing these interviews, how I guess with someone like Tupac too, like we've talked about this with your other books with Bo Jackson and some of your other sports biographies, you have the roster list so you can like see who they played with in college, who they played with in pros, and you have this. How do you generate, aside from the books and the newspaper articles, how are you generating lists? How do you figuring out who to talk to and then how are you approaching them?
I mean, obviously, high school yearbooks are always very important for me. One of the lifesavers of this whole process. There's a great, great Washington Post writer named Dave Sheinin, who I've known for years. And Dave lives near Baltimore. Tupac spent his freshman year of high school at Dunbar High School. So Dave was kind and gracious enough to go to Dunbar because I couldn't find the yearbook online, ask if they had the yearbook from when Tupac was a freshman. He's not even pictured in it, but the class is there. And he took photos of every page of that yearbook and sent them to
Oh,
me.
nice, nice.
So a lot of it is yearbooks, Baltimore School for the Arts yearbook, Dunbar yearbook, middle school yearbooks, all that stuff. Um, Liner notes, album liner notes. Who did he work with? Who was at Death Row at the time? Blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah, blah, blah. And you just kind of, one name leads to three and three names of five. You know who you should talk to? You should talk to Jed. Have you talked to Jed yet? And you talk to Jed, and Jed says, you know who you should talk to? Steve, Bob, and Mary. They're really important.
Yeah.
And it just kind of expands like that. Um, and all of a sudden you look down and you're like, holy cow, I've interviewed 100 people and 200 people and 300 people, and it builds and builds and builds. And then then actually you have this unfortunate moment when you've written the book and people say, "Oh my God, I saw the book's out. Am I in it?" And you say, I might have not used what you told me, but sorry." That's always
So,
awkward. That is a
yeah.
awkward, awkward moment that happens every book. Yeah.
So when you're doing these interviews, one thing I'm curious about is how open-ended are these interviews? Are you going, and it probably varies interview to interview, I'm sure, but like, are you going in like, tell me what you knew about Tupac, or how are you looking for specific pieces of information in them? Like when you interview 652 people, obviously that's a lot of stuff you're getting, but like, how do you approach these interviews in general?
I mean, it depends what the situation is. So, um, like one of the key people was this woman, Yasmin Fula, who was a Black Panther with Afeni Shakur, his mom, and her, I had multiple sessions with her. I just wanted her whole life story. It wasn't just about Tupac. It was about her. Same with like Layla Steinberg or
Yep.
Atron Gregory, the manager of Digital Underground. Like to me, the foundational figures their lives are important, their life journeys are important, and you go into their life journeys. If it's someone who is not even a co-star, like had a small role in Juice, I may ask a few questions about how do you wind up getting the role, blah, 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 blah. But it's mainly about what do you remember about Tupac from this movie. So it kind of just
Right.
depends on what the circumstance was of their relationship with Tupac.
Okay. Okay. So, one thing I would definitely want to ask about is I love the title of the book, "Only God Can Judge Me," and the many lives of
Mhm.
Tupac Shakur. And I know that's a specific thing, the many lives. So, kind of, how did you go in when you started this? Did you know that was kind of the direction you were going to go? And kind of what is that especially the subtitle, "The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur"? What's that mean to you?
So I probably went through 313 different title ideas. And the working title for the longest time was actually In Water Too Deep, because someone gave me a quote early on saying, if you want to know the story about Tupac, it's that he swam in waters too deep for him. And I thought, oh,
Hmm.
that's really good. But nobody really liked it. So I was looking for a title, and my daughter actually came up with my daughter Casey, who's like in college. She said, "You should go Only God Can Judge Me." And I was like, "Oh, that's pretty good, actually." The
Hmm.
Many Lives of Tupac Shakur. I mean, like on the one hand, like you're always trying to write the subtitle that's kind of like arresting and sounds like something, and like Walter Payton was the enigmatic life of Walter Payton, blah blah
Hmm.
blah. But in this case, it really, really does apply because he did live multiple lives in a very short span. From performing arts school kid, impoverished kid in Baltimore, impoverished kid in New York, to hip hop star, to death row figure, to prison, to like all these lives in one thing. So I actually thought many lives made sense here.
Hmm.
That's why I went with it. I don't know if it's good or bad, but that's why I went with it.
No, it's good.
Well, I do want to tell you, when I promoted the Walter Payton book, I just had too many people. I was doing a lot of sports radio promoting it, and people would stumble over enigmatic. So I was like, maybe that wasn't the best one. So.
It's a great word, but I can see how you stumble on this, especially
Yeah,
on radio. That's
yeah,
a tough one to get out.
exactly.
So you mentioned obviously your sports writer experience. Was that a how was that a challenge? Kind of, reporting's reporting on some level, but how much of a challenge was it going from the normally reporting on sports figures to reporting in the music industry?
Um, it wasn't as it wasn't as hard as you would think. The promoting of the book has been much more difficult than the book itself in
Okay,
regards to like number one, reporting is reporting, and digging is digging, and doggedness is doggedness. And whether you're writing about Walter Payton or Tupac, it's all the same, not to sound corny, but it's the same muscles. Like it's the same thing you're
yeah,
doing. You're calling people, you're calling people, you're calling people, you're digging through their history, you're researching. It's basically the same. Um, I would ask questions that I used to know the answer to. If someone said to me, if someone's talking about training camp with the Chicago Bears, there are no terms I'm not going to know at this point. I don't think so.
right.
Or we had them run 40s, then we did the sled drill and blah blah blah. Well, I know what all that stuff is.
Hmm.
Here they would talk about like, well, Tupac did this thing where he would like overlap his lyrics, his vocals, and he would do them like a lot of times they'll dub and you'll have a singer and it'll sound really thick because it's the same track repeated over and over again. Tupac liked to do this thing where he would record it. So he'd be like, I can't deny it. I'm a straight rider. And then he would do it again, but he would make it sound different. So the two tracks you'd hear his voice in two different areas.
Yeah.
Little things like that, I had no familiarity with whatsoever. I'd never
Hmm.
been in a recording studio, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's where the education came in. But ultimately, reporting is reporting. And if you're dogged and curious, you're dogged and curious.
Right. Did was there anywhere I'm wondering if that experience, obviously doing all these biographies up, but where you would find that your sports writer or previous experience kind of helped you in a way that maybe surprised you in the reporting of this?
Well, I mean, so I had my book, my long ago Laker book, Showtime became Winning Time. And
Yep.
Winning Time was out during some of this reporting. And Winning Time gave me a lot of cred.
Mm,
It was just, oh yeah, I don't know if you know. I said, you got to drop it in there when you're trying to interview people. I had the show Winning Time for my book. Oh, that
mm,
was you? Holy blah blah blah. So that helped a lot. Also, like, I mean, just factually, there is a lot of crossover between interest wise between sports and hip hop. And I don't know if I've ever met, I mean, you don't meet that many athletes, white, black, young, old, who don't have some knowledge and interest in hip hop. And you don't meet many rappers, I'm sure there's some who aren't somewhat interested or very interested in sports. There's just a
right.
cultural crossover of the two, sort of that was exemplified by the rise of Slam magazine back in the day. So telling people, talking sports, telling about what I did and what I've written about. Oh, I wrote a Walter Payton book. Whoa, you wrote Walter Payton? That definitely didn't hurt.
Yeah. So one through line I noticed when I was reading the book, and I'm just curious about how you developed it, is, I noticed throughout that, like, Tupac lived like he knew he was going to die young.
Mhm.
Like, not even just like unafraid that he was going to die young. Like, a lot of different times in the book, different people you quoted, or like he knew he was going to die young, and he was just kind of that like that propelled a lot of his work. And saw that as a theme throughout the book. And I thought what was really effective about that is you didn't hit the reader over the head with it. Like, it was there, it was obvious, but it was not like the sledgehammer thing. It was just kind of like it would pop up here, it would pop up there. So I guess two-part question. One, I hope I'm right in that as a through line. And how did you as a writer decide to kind of like approach that kind of, not as a theme, but not as like the heavy-handed overarching, this is the theme of my book about Tupac?
Okay, so I would say I wouldn't totally agree with you. I wouldn't
Oh,
say
okay.
no, 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 but that's okay. I would say I wouldn't say I was consciously thinking, all right, the theme of this book is Tupac knowing he's going to die young. However, in your defense, it's kind of inescapable that he had this thing. And again, like, I mean, one of the things about being a white writer writing this book is it was like a PhD in a subject that I think every white person should have a PhD in, and it's not hip hop or it's not acting. It's what it is to grow up black and poor in America. Um, PhD might even be too strong, to be honest, but I feel like I had a real education in it.
Okay.
And basically, I remember I was in Marin City interviewing a crack dealer named Brian Tynes, and he's like, we all called it over the hill if you get past 20. Like if you made it past 20, you were over the hill.
Wow.
Not over the hill like old, meaning you made it past a certain plateau that
Hmm.
you just didn't know if you were going to make it. And that was really jarring. Like that, I said, and one of the things I said to a lot of people in this book is I would be like, look, my life is a 180 from yours. I'm obviously a white guy from rural New York. My dad was an accountant. My mom was a probation officer. I never had to worry about getting shot. I knew I was going to college. I knew there was money to go to college, et cetera, et cetera. But you'll never meet anyone who's more fascinated in your life than me. I really meant. And the whole young death thing, it did keep coming up over and over and over again. Because if you're young, black, and poor in America, you have a pretty good shot of dying young. You really do. So I think the idea of Tupac being in a rush, like he was always in a rush.
Yeah.
Everything was a rush. Why am I not with Digital Underground yet? Why am I not in a movie yet? Why am I not doing this yet? Can you hurry up? Make this come faster, make this come faster. That whole thing in a way was powered by this idea that you're probably not going to be long for this earth.
How did you approach, when you were doing these interviews, those interviews with with young black men and learning all this stuff, like being very much an outsider on it? And obviously, what you said, something I say to students a lot, like, own who you are in these interviews.
Mhm.
You don't try to hide it. Don't try to like play it off. You are who you are, and learning from them. How did you, how did you kind of approach these interviews? How did you approach those interviews, and how did you kind of get people to talk is the wrong word, but like get like that you're really interested in this, that this is not just like a caricature, or like a I'm trying to
Mhm.
get you, like you're really like that sincere interest in this world.
I've actually had this talk with a lot of people during the course of this book. Like, I think there's something a lot of white people do that they think black men and women don't see through, and I think they do, which is this. Like, hey man, and then you do come in with a handshake like this, and you're like, or what's up, bro? Or like blah blah blah. Like a lot of like subtle things, and you think like you're being like quote unquote cool, but you're just pandering, right?
Hmm.
Like it comes
Right.
off. Now, I'm not saying for everyone, like some people just say, hey bro, what's up? Like my son always says, hey bro, what's up? But like I do think it comes across sometimes as pandering and inauthentic. And like, so I was like early on, I was like, I haven't done that in sports. I'm not going to do it here. I'm just not going to do that. Like I'm a kind of nerdy whiter writer, white guy, and there are nerdy writer black guys too. Like I just am who I am. And like, I'm not going to try any bullshit. Like
Hmm.
I'm not going to pretend I know more about hip hop than I do. I'm not going to use lingo that's just make to sound something like so many people do. I'm not doing it. Like I'm just not doing it. I'm not doing it. And that to me was just a real conscious decision, like that I thought a lot about. Like just be honest. Just own it's obvious you're a white guy. I'm in my 50s. I've never been confused for being cool or even slightly cool. So like don't try to be. Like just be who
Right.
you are, acknowledge who you are. I'm a writer. I had a book that became a TV show. I've had a pretty good career. Um, I'm trying to write a Tupac book because I feel like there hasn't been a great Tupac book written. You'll never meet anyone who's more interested in your life than me. I acknowledge I'm not from the same background you're on, but no, I will listen incredibly hard and do everything I can to make sure this works.
And is that how much did that resonate with people that you talk to?
I don't even know. No one was ever
Okay.
like, no one was ever like, yo, I really appreciate you not saying, but like,
Just that general, but that's kind of that kind of sincerity that you bring to it.
you know what it is? Honestly, I think you can never be wrong. I don't think you can ever go wrong. Look, like journalism is salesmanship in many ways. Like, it just
Right.
is. And like a lot of it, you are full of shit in a way, even if you're not acknowledging it to yourself. You are trying to get someone to tell you things that they probably sometimes shouldn't tell you, oftentimes don't want to tell you. So there is a lot of like, how do I make this as personal as possible? Right. But that being said, I am genuinely interested in people's stories. I like hearing people's stories. I've always liked hearing people's stories. I love talking to people. I don't think I'm a great reporter. I really don't. I call a lot of people, but I don't think I'm a great, like I have friends who are magicians with, I needed a genealogist to help me find Brenda's baby, for example. I could not have done this
Okay.
on my own. FOIA requests. I'm not that great at this. Like I'm clumsy, but I think I learned from my parents, conversational skills, how to read a room, how to talk to someone, and to do it with sincerity. And I think those things go a long way.
So we've talked a lot about the reporting process of this book. What was the writing process like? Was that
It's
how did this
terrible.
up?
It's always terrible. It's always terrible. It's
So
terrible.
it's always it never gets non-terrible.
No, I have friends. I mean, I'm good friend. There's a good friend of mine, this guy Jonathan Ige. I don't know if you've had him on, but he wrote the MLK biography. He's a great, great
Okay.
writer. He wrote Lou Gehrig, Luckiest Man. He's one of the best. He won a freaking Pulitzer. And I had lunch with him out here in LA when I was working on when I was writing deep in the writing, and I was just complaining. And he's like, "You need to stop complaining. Like you're getting a PhD to write a book about Tupac. You would do this for free."
Right.
And I've quoted that many times because it was a good reminder for me. The writing is torture. Like it is torture. Number one, I hate everything I write. I'm convinced it sucks. I'm always convinced it sucks. I have this horrible system that I now am trapped to, which is I report for whatever 2 years and then I write every day for 7 months. So like I'm
Okay.
trapped in my own room or trapped in a Starbucks. I'm the weird guy with the big bag. Like it beats the shit out of me. It beats the shit out of me. It's not, I love writing. Dorothy Parker, the perfect quote.
Mhm.
I hate writing. I love having written. I mean, that's
Yeah.
in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So.
So was there a part of the book or a section of the book in the writing that was I'll say this. I was going to say particularly challenging, but I don't need to beat you down anymore. Was there a part that like you was surprisingly good or like you felt like as you're writing you're like, okay, this is working really, really well.
So I don't usually think that way. My wife will tell you that. Um, I would say, uh, I mean, I really enjoyed, like, enormously enjoyed everything that had to do with the movies he was in and writing about the movies he was in. And it's fun. Also, like, this is corny. I don't get nervous about it, but like interviewing like Jim Belushi and Layla Rashawn and like different actors who I've watched is fun. And talking to them about Tupac is fun. And an
Mhm.
interesting side note, I just want to say, so the actress Layla Rashawn was in a movie with Tupac and Bo Jackson. So she is the
Nice.
common thread of it, which is kind of funny actually. So I interviewed her for 2 books. I told her she's the award winner. Um, but I love writing about like I love like little I don't even know why little scenes from movie sets. Like I found this actress who was in Juice. Her name was Brooklyn Harris, and she didn't want to talk to me at first, but she talked to me. She was really cool actually, and she told me Tupac. They wanted Tupac to jump across a building, two buildings, and Tupac immediately asked for a stunt fee. And she was like, he was 19 years old. I have no idea how he knew what a stunt fee was, but he was very insistent he had to get a stunt fee.
Mhm.
Little things like that make my day. Like
Yeah.
little tiny, 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 minuscule things like that absolutely make my day. It doesn't make it more fun to write about. The writing is just,
Right.
but I do like having those moments.
Mhm. What was your what was your favorite thing? This is a bit a tough question, but was there a favorite thing that you learned about Tupac reporting this book? Like a little thing like that. It doesn't have to be a big thing, like a little
Yeah.
thing that you learned.
I mean, I loved him. I loved him in the Baltimore School for the Arts. That's my
Yes.
favorite Tupac by far. I love him walking through the hallway, drinking water out of a baby bottle with a nipple on top, fingernails painted, uh, pants spray painted, sometimes wearing like an Abe Lincoln top hat, sometimes wearing a baseball cap, hydroxide strip going down his thing, quoting the lyrics of Kate Bush and Don McLean, Pointer Sisters, that kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
he was this butterfly. And it's funny because like, I mean, you read the book, like it is not, I can't say the book is kind to Tupac. Like it's not unkind to Tupac, but it's not
No, it's
kind to Tupac.
no, it's very honest about Tupac.
Right.
Yeah.
And like there's a moment when he kissed a boy in high school, right? And there was his friend, Seth Bloom, and they had an innocent kiss. Seth Bloom was a gay kid. They were close friends, I guess. I mean, you would think I wrote that Tupac was a Nazi. Like,
Hmm.
and I thought for me, it was like kind of this innocent, nice moment, like
Hmm.
if you told me like, I mean, it didn't even like, it didn't even resonate with me, right? But there is something
Hmm.
about homosexuality in hip hop that it's frowned upon in a heavy way, and I didn't see that coming. But I actually loved the innocence of him. I even loved the innocence of him kissing his gay classmate, like just on a lark at a party,
Yeah.
blah blah blah. So I love that era of Tupac very much.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, my daughter's in high school and she's a theater kid. So just, picturing Tupac as the kind of theater kid that, my daughter does shows with is just like, there's something so delightful about that,
Wait, I
right?
want to
Like,
say there's one thing I loved in that era too. He does not play. He's in Tam High School in Marin City at this point, and he doesn't play. And him and his classmate go to Denny's after, and it's a
hmm
white classmate. And Tupac is like, first we're gonna smoke this blunt, and this kid had never smoked a blunt. He's like a white kid from Marin, and they're smoking a blunt, and they go to Denny's. And I love this story so much. Actually, this may be my favorite. I've never talked about this in promoting it all. And Tupac's like, we're gonna dash and dine. And the guy's
yes.
like, or dine and dash. And the kid's like, no, I don't do that. And Tupac says, nah, man, we're fucking dining and dashing right now. And they run out, and Tupac says, I just wanted to see a white boy running from the cops. Like, I love that moment so much. So,
So, because to be a great writer, you read great stuff. I ask everybody this. So I'll ask you, what's the best thing that you've read lately?
first of all, I would not refer to and I'm not being humble, I would not refer to myself as a great writer, even though it's kind of you, but I appreciate it. There are
Mm,
many greater. I am reading right now, actually. Well, I'll tell you two things. I have it literally sitting right here. An author, CJ Farley, who, confession, I know, but great guy, wrote a book called Who Knows You by Heart, which I just finished, is so good. I don't read that much fiction, so good. And then right now, as we speak, I'm reading. It's nice actually when you're not working on a book, you can actually read books that you choose to read.
mm.
I'm reading a Marvin Gaye biography by David
Oh,
Ritz, and it's
nice.
really, really good. So, I mean, what's the last thing you read, Brian?
So, I am currently. So, the last thing I finished was your book. I am
Sorry about that.
currently.
Don't blame me.
I am currently reading. Talk about being a dork. I'm currently reading the novelization of The Revenge of the Sith, the third Star Wars book. I've gotten into reading Star Wars books just as I need as my escape from the daily hellscape that is, the news and our country.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm reading right now. But no, I'm not just saying this because I have you on my podcast, but your book was out. It was really fun. It was a really fun read. It was a really, like I said, I learned a lot about like who Tupac was because I was, I was in college when he got shot, and so like he was like you said, this mythical figure and this kind of like not in this world that I was aware of him as much as anybody,
Yeah.
but kind of. And what always stands out to me and is how young, like you don't realize how young he really was, and like at the time it didn't seem young, but now I'm in my 40s, like, oh, he was 25, like
That's the
he
thing.
was a baby
It's
when he
crazy.
got shot.
I actually think it's the easiest thing to forget about Tupac is
Hmm.
people hold him up as this mythological figure. And I'm not saying they're wrong or right, but they hold him up to mean so much. And he did mean a lot. But like he was a baby. Like I don't mean a baby like attitude wise. I mean literally in time, he was a baby. He was
Hmm.
25. You don't know anything at 25. He knew a
No.
lot, but there's a lot you don't know at 25. Um, Yeah, it's easy to forget. And really interestingly, like this book was more than any book I've written. I actually think of it in my head as a hamburger. Like usually books are like um pasta. They're long and they're
Mhm.
stringy and they're this journey. And Tupac, everything was like this. It's like
Yeah.
he did Juice and he had his first album and he got in a fight with cops and blah blah. And it's all so tightly compressed. There was actually the biggest challenge of writing this book, honestly, was writing on a very compressed timeline when usually you're used to books are usually like leisurely strolls, and this felt much more like a sprint of a life. So
Yeah, definitely. So we will have I'll have a link to buy the book for your holiday shopping in show notes and links to all the stuff that we've been reading. Maybe not the Star Wars book. That's a particular brand of dork that
that's
probably
okay.
doesn't need to. That's fine. But and also really quick, Jeff, I want to give you a chance to promote your YouTube channel and the awesome stuff you've been doing on YouTube.
Hey, I have a YouTube channel called Press Box Chronicles. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, but it's kind of fun. It's storytelling. Every week a different sports story. It all stems from my rise on TikTok, Brian, which has been one of the most confusing stories of my life. But here I sit, so I don't even know. Yeah.
No, the stories are all great. The TikTok's fun too. And the book was great. So Jeff, as always, love talking, writing with you. Appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Thanks for listening to The Other 51. Special thanks to Jeff Pearlman for being this month's guest. You can buy his most recent book and all of his books at the link in the show notes, and I'll have links to his YouTube and TikTok channels there as well. Jen Moritz does our graphic design. Our theme music is by Ellie Moritz. I'm Brian, and I'll talk to you next time.